Okay. So we are on the Coaching on Topic for the third circuit, which is the top of the pyramid with this intensive intervention. And last time we met, we were talking about really wanting to get to figuring out the function of behaviors, right? And we had kind of thrown around the idea of using that functional behavior interview. And Ben was saying it's probably better for us to focus on collecting data to find the function. Because you do that first, and then you get all the team members together to do that interview. So does that feel comfortable with you?
That sounds great.
So it's working towards that same goal of finding the function. And being able to do that. Okay. So today we'll really dive into that functional behavior assessment, and just looking through the data collection tools that you can use to support this type of analysis of behavior. So I have put together a little mini training on it.
Okay, good.
And there's not really any videos to watch of people going through the process itself, but we will use some videos of children's behavior. When we go through our modeling and behavior rehearsal and life coaching. So hopefully that'll help, and if we feel like we need more, then I can dig around for some more stuff, So I don't know if this is something that you guys have talked about in your training yet or not.
We just started talking about it.
Awesome. So some of this might feel repetitive because I pulled a lot of it from the Pyramid Plus session, but repetition is good, right? That's how we learn.
Totally.
And we'll get really hands-on experience with using some of this stuff.
I like that.
Which I think will be helpful. So the functional behavior assessment is really the central feature to the positive behavior support plan that can be created for children. When they're showing some challenging behaviors. It's a process for gathering information, data through observations about any problem behavior that's occurring and the environmental conditions that might be that kind of predict that it's going to happen, and sometimes they help to actually maintain that behavior. And sometimes we just don't think about it until we look at it through this lens. So the whole goal of this functional behavior assessment is to improve the effectiveness and efficiency of a behavior support plan by helping us, we go through this to find out what the purpose or function of the behavior is. So they say that all behavior works for a child in some fashion, right? So going through this assessment process helps us to come up with a hypothesis, right? Our best guess as to what the purpose of this behavior is and why it's working for this child.
Are you cold?
Well, I have my coat. It's I'm fine. Are you okay?
I'm fine.
Okay, all right. So this whole assessment process really gather information about the problem behavior, the situations where it's most likely to happen and least likely to happen, and then the consequences that reward or maintain this behavior. So, right? Something happens before the behavior, then we have the behavior, and then there's something that happens after it that makes it work. Right?
We watched the videos on that. We did. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I think sometimes that word consequences doesn't always fit for me as in something that would make it continue. Right? But that's exactly what they're saying is that whatever comes after it for some reason works. So out of this whole process, like I said, you kind of develop a hypothesis of why this behavior serves this child in some way. And you can certainly do this on adults too. Why any behavior serves any person, right?
That's true.
There's always,
No, you're right.
So the process of the functional behavior assessment is reviewing the child's records, right, to see if there's anything that we need to know about in there. Do they talk about that classroom profile of challenging behavior classroom-wide practices where you go through and say, do we do this in our classroom? Do we do this in our classroom? Did you get to that part? You'll see it. So basically we want to make sure that the classroom environment itself is set up in such a way that positive behaviors are promoted. Okay.
Was that the bottom one?
I'm trying to think. I can show you a copy next time I come. But basically you fill it out yes or no.
Oh,
you just kind of circle. You might not be there yet.
Not yet.
So that's something that you do when you go through this full-blown process. And then you observe the child and collect data, and then you get the team together for an interview. Okay? And the team includes the family. Okay. So obviously we're not going to do that whole thing. We're just going to hone in on the data collection, but I want to really talk about this whole piece so that we see where it fits in.
Okay.
So the outcomes of that whole assessment process are that we get a really clear description of the child's problem behavior.
Okay.
We get to identify the antecedent conditions, which are those things that happened before, right? That set the occasion for the behavior to occur, okay? And it can either set it or it doesn't set it, okay? And then we identify the consequent conditions that maintain that problem behavior, okay? And out of all of that, we get our hypothesis for what the function or purpose of that behavior is. Okay. So that's the whole purpose of going through all of this. For your learning objective for this circuit, we're really going to hone in on the data collection piece. But before we do that, let's kind of talk through behavior as a form of communication. Okay. Did you guys talk about that this last time?
We did talk about, not as, we're in the first part of 17.
Okay.
And then we're going to do the second part of 17 this Friday.
Cool. So you'll be right in the middle of it, which is neat. Okay. So with communication, every communicative behavior can be described with form and function. Form means the behavior used to communicate. So that could be words, it could be pointing to something, right? An eye gaze, pulling on teacher, crying, biting, tantrums, right? The list could go on and on. And then the other part of it is function, the reason or purpose for that behavior. So that's could be to get or obtain something, or to get away from, avoid, or escape something. Okay.
Like hiding under the table when it's cleanup time.
So that is, really that behavior, right, would be hiding under there. And then what function does that have for that child, right? They're avoiding something, right? So other functions are like requesting an object or activity or person, right? Sometimes maybe if they hide under the table, they're avoiding their peers and they're getting one-on-one attention. Sometimes it could have more than one, right? So it could be requesting help or social interaction, requesting information, requesting sensory stimulation. This comes up sometimes. They could be escaping demands or activities. Or peer interactions. It could be escaping a certain person or escaping sensory stimulation, right? If it's just too much commotion. And again...
Which that is a commotion time, like cleanup time is a...
That list could kind of go on and on. So there are some limitations to this, and that's that some factors could contribute to problem behaviors that are beyond the capacity of a positive behavior support plan, okay? Like medical or neurological issues, there are some of those behaviors that this is not going to be the answer for. So that's a limitation. And then sometimes there's not enough observable information to complete the full-blown functional behavior assessment. So sometimes we just can't get enough data. Maybe it happens severely, but it's not happening often.
Okay.
Right? Or maybe it stems from something at home and the family is not willing to be part of it.
Yeah,
Or, you know what I mean?
right.
There could be various reasons why
Yeah.
there's gaps and we can't get to that. So, what are your thoughts about kind of this concept?
No, I think that's, we did go over it, but we ended here.
Okay,
So
good.
that, but that is, I agree with that, because really, I think that's an important skill in social is communication, learning to communicate correctly, and also in the behavior that we're talking about, like they're having if the behavior is a negative behavior, they're doing it because it's fulfilling their needs somehow, some way, you know. I mean, and I think that's the thing that I just really learned within, not recently, but what kind of blew my mind, that children will behave negatively, doesn't matter to them as long as they get attention.
Yeah.
That just blew my mind.
Right.
I really didn't realize that, but I think that's an important fact to know,
Right.
that children don't care how they get attention.
Right.
That they get attention is what they want, and they'll
Right.
get it however.
Right. That function would be to obtain
Right.
the attention, to
Yeah.
obtain one-on-one time,
Yeah.
right? Positive
Yeah.
or negative doesn't matter.
No.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. That is a really interesting thing to kind of think about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When a kiddo can be showing behaviors that are so like, wah, you know,
Right,
and really they
right.
just want that closeness.
Yeah.
It's kind of heartbreaking.
It is. It is.
Yeah. So all of this really aligns with implementation of the Pyramid Plus approach as a whole classroom, as whole classroom practices are looked at first,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Are we doing all of these base layer things to support positive behavior?
Right.
Then data is collected in an evidence-based approach, right? It's really individualized. The plans we come up with are individualized, and they're made to replace the problem behavior with a positive behavior.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's more functional in the classroom environment.
Yeah.
Okay? So it's really an inclusive practice. It's not like we're, pulling this child out
Right.
and doing, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
all happening within the classroom environment where there are those inclusive practices.
Right. That's good.
Okay. That's about that piece. Does that fit
Yeah.
for you? Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about what they call the behavior equation and the ABCs of behavior, because that's going to help us when we're collecting data. Okay, so the behavior equation is basically that there is an antecedent or a trigger,
Okay.
then the behavior, and then the consequence that maintains it, and from that we can find the function or the
Okay.
purpose.
All right.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's what they mean by that equation. Those three things, out of those three things, you'll be able to find what that function is. So the ABCs of behavior are antecedent, behavior, and consequence. So the antecedent is the setting for the behavior, when it occurs, right? Maybe it's a trigger, okay, of some sort. It could be a change in the physical surroundings or social circumstances or behavior of others. So maybe if I'm a kiddo and I walk into preschool for the first time and I feel my mom tense up, right? When she walks in the room, oh, that's different. That, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
There's a lot of different things that could be.
And that's another key thing, a fact. Well, it's probably evident, but is that your children can pick up on your feelings.
Yes.
You don't have to.
Right.
You don't have to say boo.
They know.
They have.
Yeah.
I don't know how you explain that, but they do.
Yep, absolutely. So the behavior obviously is the specific action that a person does that can be observed, okay? But I think this is really important too because We have to start to think of behavior just as purely those actions.
Okay.
So instead of linking emotion words to them,
Okay.
and I know for me, when there's strong and
Yeah.
really challenging behaviors, there's a lot of emotion involved in
Right.
it, right? But through this process, we define the behavior just through descriptive words, okay? So
Right.
instead of saying the child came in and he was really angry, that's a feeling word,
Right.
right? So we could say that the child came in and his eyebrows furrowed and he stomped his foot or whatever happened. Right.
Right.
Okay. And then
So you just write down what you observe, not
only what you can observe.
Right.
Not what you.
infer.
Yep.
Or,
Yep. Perfect. That's exactly it.
okay.
And then that consequence is what happens immediately after the behavior.
Right.
Okay. So an example of this would be, and this is right from the Pyramid Plus approach. So Gabriella's playing in her room. Her mom says, "Come on, Gabriella, time to go to school." Her mom pulls on her arm to try to get Gabriella to stand and go to the car. Gabriella yells, screams, and begins kicking at her toys. Her mother says, "All right, 5 more minutes, but then we have to go." Gabriella's mom walks away, and Gabriella continues playing with her toys. So in that example, the trigger would be that she was playing in her room.
Mm-hmm.
It was time to get in the car for school. Another possible trigger could have been mom pulling on her arm
Yeah.
to get her to stand up. The behavior would be that she was yelling, screaming, kicking at toys. And then that consequence is that mom gave her 5 more minutes of
It's
playtime.
exactly what you wanted.
So that function is that she's escaping going to the car, right?
Which I think in the first place she didn't really want to go to school right then because she was like
Right.
engaged with her toys.
Right, exactly.
And
exactly.
so uncannily she got what she really wanted.
Right.
So I wonder what will happen in 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
If it's a
I bet Gabriella wonders that too.
right.
And I bet she'll find out.
Yeah.
Okay. So, how do you feel about looking at behavior in this way?
No, I think that's a very good way because I think that's it's not emotional. It's not putting a label on it, and I think because I think when you step back and then you just look at the facts, I think you're able to see more of the picture.
Yeah.
And if you do a good job in writing down the observation and not put just see right what you see. I think that and that's a good skill. I would like to learn in that skill.
Awesome.
I think that's a good thing, because that is very true.
Yeah.
You don't realize that sometimes you give the child exactly what they want,
Right.
and that reinforces their behavior.
Right. Right.
That it reinforces their behavior, which makes it difficult for you and for them, really.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, just my kind of experience with this whole thing, when I was teaching, I taught inside of an elementary school in a
Okay.
preschool classroom,
Okay.
which was always interesting because you had the loudest classroom in the whole school, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or the only preschool classroom. But one year I had a little guy who would come in and he had some separation anxiety. But it was pretty extreme. Mom would come in and he would start screaming and crying. I would take him, mom would say bye.
Yeah.
And then my solution for him was, do you want to spend some time in the cozy corner, right? To help him calm down. That's what I'm thinking.
Right.
Well, the screaming and crying would continue and continue and continue and
Okay.
continue. And talk about behavior and emotion becoming
Okay.
mixed. That screaming and crying is unnerving for everybody who's in the classroom.
Right. It is.
It was to the point where the principal came in, because this is disruptive to
Yeah.
more than just my classroom.
Right.
So we kind of went through this process, and we found that the function was that he was actually avoiding peers. and he was
Okay.
really unsure about peer interaction, how to interact with his peers. And so my solution of him going to the cozy corner to calm down, he was getting to avoid his peers in that way. And his peers were not coming anywhere near him when he was
Right.
screaming and crying.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So that whole little process was really maintaining that. So we replaced that morning routine with a choice. He got to choose which seat he sat in. I had some like little cube chairs or little things on the floor, so when he came in with mom, it was, good morning, how are you? Where are you going to sit today? You're going to sit in the red cube chair or on the purple square? You know what I mean? And those were his choices, right? And then we got him to circle in that way. And that helped with this. And then we did some really intentional teaching of social skills
Yeah.
and having somebody right there to help him through that.
Right.
But just going through that whole process, I had a lot of the feelings that you already named, but I felt less in the middle of it.
Yeah.
My emotions of like, why can't this kiddo feel comfortable in my classroom? Like, what am I doing wrong?
Okay.
Got taken away, and I could kind of look at it from more of a logical perspective. And the whole team was on the same page because we went through this together.
Okay, yeah.
Which that helped too. We all came up with this plan, and then we all tried it
And
together.
so that worked?
Yeah,
Did
it worked for him. And he still did not always obviously prefer to be right in the middle of everything that was going on. But just shaking up his morning routine worked, and he'd come there and he would want to leave and was like, oh, let's get him really engaged, right away.
Right.
So that worked for him, and eventually he was making friends and able to play during free play. But I never thought that like offering for him to go to Cozy Corner was maintaining that ongoing, crying behavior. So
Can I just interject something?
Yeah.
One thing that, and just let me know, just one
Yeah.
thing that I've observed when I've been teaching is like a shy child,
yeah,
that does come in. One thing that I have observed, and not, is that they first want to feel comfortable with the teacher.
yeah,
And then after they feel comfortable with the teacher, the surroundings, the schedule for the day,
routines within routines, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
then I think they're more able to reach out. And I'm talking about the younger child,
Yeah.
like I taught young threes.
Yeah.
And then after they feel more comfortable,
Yeah.
then they go to their peers and they, interact with them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I think that you're
How
definitely right. They
old,
have to have
yeah.
that.
How
that
old
base.
was that little boy?
He was 4.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So, yeah. Does this feel like it's gonna be helpful in your classroom?
Yeah, I think it would be good, because I think we're thinking about Jack, right?
So, yeah, I think, he is the person that is exhibiting the most challenging behavior in your classroom. So as we go through this, we're going to really learn how to use these data sheets.
Okay.
And then part of the implementation plan will be you and Jordan filling them out on any challenging behavior that you see from Jack
Okay.
as practice with this.
Right.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Good. Okay. So from going through that whole process, we'll come up with our hypothesis statement, which is when this happens, right, whatever the antecedent is,
Right.
then it causes this behavior is shown, and as a result,
That
this.
consequence.
Yep. Okay.
It's very clear cut.
Yeah. So, we're going to kind of look at some data collection methods that are
Okay.
built into the Pyramid Plus approach. So, the way that this works is that the team decides on data to collect when you're doing a full functional behavior assessment, okay? When we're going through this for our circuit, you're going to get to choose which one you want to try out. But if you're doing this all together, then obviously your team's going to say, I think this one works best. The data collection method really helps us to identify what, when, who, and how that is going to be collected. And then we want to make sure that it's collecting the data is as easy as possible. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen.
Right.
So you'll see that there's some different choices, and different ones will fit better.
Okay.
For certain people or for certain situations.
Yeah.
So one of the options is the ABC data sheet, and that's the antecedent, behavior, consequence.
Okay.
So you can kind of see that you would outline what that targeted behavior was, and then you would just have this in your classroom, and you'd fill out, the date, when it happened, your initials, so all of your stuff could fill out on one form.
Okay.
What happened just before the behavior, what the specific behavior was, and then what happened right after it, and then any comments. If mom said he didn't sleep well the night before, or maybe there was a substitute in the classroom, or anything that's really pertinent.
Okay.
Right? Okay. And then we would kind of fill this out for a certain period of time, and then talk about the results.
Like, what would be the certain amount of time?
So you could
A
do
month?
it for, I would say less than that, maybe a week.
Okay.
Or
Well, the only thing is
depends.
we just meet 3 days a week.
Yeah,
We don't meet, but
right. I think it would depend
Just a
on
week?
how often the behavior is occurring. If it's
Okay.
not occurring that often and you need a wider
Okay.
range of time,
Yeah.
you can really customize it to fit, what it needs to.
okay,
It's so individualized.
okay,
The other type is a behavior incident report, and this is more of like a checklist. And one of these is filled out each time there's a behavior. So instead of a running tally, you have separate forms. And so, you have choices for what the problem behavior is. Choices for where it happened, the activity, who was involved, possible motivation, and consequences, and then area for comments.
okay,
So if having these choices outlined is helpful, then this is a really good form.
okay,
If it's easier to just kind of have one thing there and have a running tally, then maybe the ABC data sheet
okay,
is better. Another data collection is an observation card.
okay,
And so you can see it's more the teacher or staff person's words, just filling out what was going on socially, what the
Okay.
behavior was, what the social reaction to it was, and what the possible function of it could have been.
okay.
Okay. So what one kind of speaks to you most?
I don't know if that one does. It's
Okay. Too checklisty for
Well, and I think a lot of this doesn't, like quiet time, nap meals, individual, therapy. We don't really have that.
you? Okay.
Hallway. We're not really in the hallway for the bathroom.
Okay.
So I don't. There's a lot on there that wouldn't really.
Okay.
I'd say between these two
Okay.
would be good, because I think it would deal with. That's way too much.
Okay.
I think that has too much, but I think this is more specific, right to the point.
Okay.
I saw this behavior, antecedent before the behavior, the consequence.
Okay.
I kind of like those.
Okay. Awesome. So you want to try out this ABC data sheet?
Yeah, why don't I
Okay.
try that?
Okay. So we'll kind of focus on that. I'm gonna leave you the copies of the other ones
Okay.
just for information.
Okay, good.
Okay. So and you feel like this would be pretty easy and accurate?
I think
yeah,
so. I
yeah.
think it gives the time, So, we kind of know, like where it was during the day, the date, the time, and then.
Yep. Okay, good deal. So obviously this entire strategy is such an individualized approach.
Yeah.
And so it fits for any child that's
Yeah.
exhibiting challenging behavior. It's so individualized that to think about it as being an inclusive practice, I mean, it is individualized for
Right.
anybody that you need to do this for. It could be, if somebody was just having difficulty accepting redirection, all the way up to the most challenging behavior
Okay.
of maybe, a child with autism that was exhibiting certain challenging behaviors, right?
Yeah.
We could use this process on a whole wide range. Because it really allows us to look at their specific behavior, involve all of the team members that are necessary for that child, right, which could differ,
Yeah.
and develop a positive behavior support plan that's customized just for that child.
Because this would really be good because like where Chris is also wanting to have like she's the director of Afternoon Explorers, so the children who are in after morning class and then go to Afternoon Explorers because she wants to have a continuity. So that would really be good for her too.
Yeah,
that's
true.
To have that because it's more and then I really can see that.
Yeah, if a child was in both settings, that would be awesome.
Because there's sometimes they exhibit different behaviors in different type of settings.
Right, that's true.
So that's really good.
So have I described this whole kind of concept in a way that's making sense?
Okay, let me say back to you what I
Okay.
think you said. That
Okay,
would clarify it.
Yeah.
What I hear you say is that this is for a thing for individual children. It's very individual, and it's to target it, and it's to help target understanding of of their behavior and have it become a positive outcome. Like say like to keep a data on, and when you have the antecedent, you don't put feelings or you don't put your own personal feeling words into it. But what you do is you just say like like I'll give you an example like Jack was very upset when I left the classroom. Specific behavior. He started crying and he stopped interacting with children.
Yep.
And then the consequence, I would say he. See, I'm not in there, so I'll have to ask Jordan what the consequences. But I think what also the specific he withdraws, and I think he doesn't want anybody interact with him.
Okay.
So a consequence, what would
Yeah, so
one
then
to
so
one,
then what
maybe.
happens? Yeah, does
Okay,
Jordan go over
so,
to him?
I
or-
think, but he is very resistant. So I think the consequence is he's left alone.
Yeah.
He's left alone.
Right.
That would be okay. So that is the